Well, hello. This is Pistol
What?
Pete.
It's me, Jim Redfine. Hello, everybody. It's been so long. It's been quite a while. I didn't recognize you at first.
Yeah, man. Been a minute since the six men have come alive.
I'm telling you, man, I got 3 bachelor's degrees. I started a family. I'm living in a high rise in New York City. A lot has changed.
Jeez, man. Good to see you. I think
Is,
we have a visitor here
what?
with us
Oh,
on this
is
podcast.
that?
It's
Let
reunion.
me clean my glasses real quick.
Go ahead.
It is. It's our good pal Keaton. Hello,
Special
Keaton.
Special K for those who don't know.
That's it. That's it. Yes. Keaton's his
What's up?
father's name.
Hey, you two.
What's up, Keaton?
How are you doing, Keaton? How are you doing on this wonderful day?
What's going on? I'm having a good day. Actually, I'm having a good day. You guys caught me at a good time.
Did we
My
really?
voice keeps going now.
Oh, no.
All good.
Yeah. I just got back from HEB. I think that stands for here everything is bigger.
Oh.
I got some.
Oh, my
I got some
gosh. That
cookies.
makes sense now.
Yeah, I think it does. Well, I can't anyway. Yeah, I just got back and I'm reclined. I'm chilling. I'm talking to two good pals I haven't seen in a while,
Yeah.
and so far so good. You know, it's been a good day.
You caught us at a good time too. I mean, we split our separate ways because we felt like it would be best for us to, take our careers on our own individual paths. But this is a reunion. This is fan service.
Yeah, that's a really nice way of saying we didn't really like each other, but we're back now. And we're here.
and
We're
we're
having a
happy
good
to
time.
have you.
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm glad I can finally start talking to Pistol Pete again without furniture being thrown around the room.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good time.
Yes, indeed. So the topic of the day here, the GOAT.
Well, we have to admit that we kind of lied to get Keaton here. Keaton, it's not we didn't invite you to board game night. I know you thought we were about to be playing some Yahtzee. You know we're about to be playing some Monopoly, maybe some Scrabble, but we lied about all that to get you here for this podcast, and we're sorry about that.
We're not playing games today,
We're not playing games.
We're not making cupcakes here. I catch your drift.
and we're not the
What's-
starters, by the way.
What's the occasion? What is the occasion?
Well, I don't know if you know, but there's this thing called the NBA. And at the NBA, people play basketball, some good, some bad. But there's an argument going around about who plays the basketball the best. And the world can't decide. People are still arguing. The ESPN just released a 10-hour documentary making a case for one player. But no one can decide. So everyone in the world decided, Keaton, you're the one who's going to make the final say in who the best basketball player is of all time. Pat Riley agreed that you can decide. Kenny the Jet Smith, Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, they all said, we'll leave it to Keaton. He'll make the final say.
That's why they call him Special K.
That's why they call him Special K, yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, gee, sounds like you got a little pressure here, a little something writing on this. So
Yeah.
I'll give it
Put
the
you
old
on the spot.
That's why we had a lie to get you here, because we knew you wouldn't do it on your own.
Yeah, kind of the old
Sink or
bait
swim.
and switch.
Yeah.
Yeah, bait and switch. You guys got me, but I'll try my best, like I always do. I never let y'all down. I always give it the old college try. So we'll see if I can't figure out who's king of the hill in this NBA ESPN thing.
Yes, sir. So we got 10 players for you. Me and Peter will present arguments for and against each one of those players. You're going to put them all in your little head of yours, do some swashing around, and you're going to come out with the best. And you can ask questions along the way.
Okay, first guy.
All right.
Who's the first ESPNer?
So we are using the ESPN top 74 players from the 74 years in the league. Of course, we're not using all 74. We're just going to using the top 10. So we're going to start off with number 10, and that is Big Diesel Shaq Fu.
I already don't like this guy.
Shaquille O'Neal, the 7'1" center from Newark, New Jersey. He played at LSU and played 19 years in the NBA for the Magic, Lakers, Heat, Suns, Cavs, and Celtics. Special K, what do you think of this man right off the bat?
Shaq Daddy.
That I think. Well, first of all, I should probably let everyone know that I may have a little bit of a bias here because I did go to LSU Eunice, and that's right. So I mean, if this guy's from LSU, I mean, what's not to like? I mean, it'd be hard for me to say something about this character, the Shaq character, without it coming across like, we went to the same school. We probably ate at the same lunchroom, same
Probably did.
Homeroom teacher and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you guys probably had the same algebra teacher for all we know.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the same custodian who cleaned your dorm room. Who knows? I don't know. So, I mean, who's to say, man? Who's to say?
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, there's a lot of accolades that are associated with this man. This man has 4 championships from 2000 to 2002, as well as in 2006. He led the way for the first 3, arguably, winning the Finals MVP in all 3 of them. He's been in 6 NBA Finals, where he has a record of 4-6. Won Rookie of the Year. He's a 2-time scoring champion, and he has won the MVP 1 time in 1999 to 2000. But it's arguable that he could have won 2 more if it wasn't for a little guy, Steve Nash, who some people argue had better numbers than during the 2004, 2005, and 2005-2006 season. He's a 15-time All-Star, which he's tied for 3rd most of all time, a 3-time MVP, 14-time All-NBA team, and has a career stat of 23 points per game, 10 rebounds per game, and 2 assists per game. So those are the factual information about Shaquille O'Neal.
Big numbers for a big guy.
I thought we were just talking about Steve Nash for a second there.
So Steve Nash came in for a bit. He poked his head in because you can't tell the story of Shaq without Steve Nash.
Okay.
He's not in this list though. Don't worry about Nash. He doesn't have a ring.
Well, now I'm pretty worried about him. Well, I'm gonna have to think about this a little bit because.
Well, I got some pros and cons to make things a little bit easier for you.
Well, you started talking about Steve Nash, and I already started to like him a whole lot. And then you did the switcheroo on me and started talking about Shaquille O'Neal again. And I don't even know. Did Steve Nash go to LSU Eunice or LSU Alexandria or any of those LSU satellite schools?
I didn't bring up Nash for too long here. Nash kind of poked his head in and said, "Hey guys," and then bounced. So I don't understand you being too confused of the situation. But let me present you with some pros and cons about Mr. Shaquille O'Neal. So, Shaquille O'Neal had a career field goal percentage of .582. That is the 6th highest of all time, and he attempted more shots than all those who are ranked above him. The eye test shows that he is the most dominant force of the past few decades, and he was dominant in an era of tough defense, which included Dikembe Mutombo, David Robinson, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Ben Wallace, and Tim Duncan. Peter, would you like to add any pros you think that would go to Shaq's argument?
I think he's just the most physically dominating player that's ever played the game. Period. And
not mentally dominating?
Well, I mean, he had
that's where the cons come in.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
So, when it comes to being a first-team All-NBA team, he is ranked 14 overall when it comes to having the most, which isn't that high, especially if we're talking about the GOAT. So, when it comes to free throws, he had a career percentage of .527, which makes him the top 5 worst free throw shooters ever. And he had a season low of .422 at one point. He only has 1 MVP, and during his career, Tim Duncan won twice, Karl Malone won twice, Steve Nash won twice, and LeBron James won twice.
Here's the Steve Nash character again, and I keep hearing him and think, what a...
You can make the argument he was robbed from one of those Nash ones, so it makes sense.
What a stand-up guy.
Mm-hmm.
And there could be arguments saying that he would not have that last title if it wasn't for a prime Dwayne Wade, as the kids like to call him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And his career points per game is 23.69. Not bad, but it's lower than about half of the list that I'm about to state. So he's also been called lazy by former teammates, and people claim he did not reach his full potential. Is there any cons you'd like to add there, Pistol Pete?
Yeah, you pretty much just said it. I mean, he didn't like to practice. He was like I said, he was a big guy. So sometimes he got too big, got up to 400 pounds. Still, maybe, he's still athletic, a beast, physically dominating. But man, 400 pounds.
He was a big
It's
dude.
hefty.
Okay. So I'm thinking here, the Shaquille character, take away all his connections to the LSU satellite school system.
Correct.
Take away the Steve Nash character.
See, you're back with Steve Nash. I don't think
have a
he's that
lot
big
with
of a
Shaquille is. No, I'm saying take that away. The fact that Shaquille O'Neal at one point in his career, possibly for a whole season, weighed 400 pounds. I think
allegedly.
I think you'd be crazy not to get this guy in your team, because you're practically paying for the weight of two individual players. But
That's about two Magic Johnsons, if you ask me.
That's interesting. I've never heard that argument.
but for the price of one, and that to me, I mean, if I was a manager, that just sounds like a bargain. And the fact that he has all these field goals and percentages and things to boot. I mean, and the fact that he's physically dominating and not too mentally dominating. I don't know. This puts him very high on my list, and I haven't even heard the other 9.
Yeah.
All right.
People.
Well,
We're probably gonna have to break this down
then,
into
shall we?
Yeah, we'll probably have to break this down to.
Let's hear the next one.
Exactly. We got something to get through. Next up is Kobe Bryant. May he rest in peace. Black Mamba. He is a 6'6" shooting guard, small forward. He played 20 seasons for the Los Angeles Lakers. He is a 5-time NBA champion, winning 3 with Shaq from 2000 to 2002 and 2 with Paul Gasol in 2009 and 2010. He won league MVP in 2008, 18-time All-Star, which is the second most, and a 4-time All-Star MVP, where he is tied for most with Bob Pettit. His 15-time All-NBA selection, and he's tied for the most first team. I'm sorry. He is He is in second place for the most first-team selections. He has 5-7 in the finals, losing to the Pistons in 2004 and the Celtics in 2008. He's a 12-time All-Defensive Team member, 2-time scoring champ, and the 4th in all-time leading scoring. So we got some pros here. If you use an eye test, he is one of the clutchest players of all time, as well as an incredible defensive player, and potentially the greatest one-on-one guard ever, as well as probably one of the best leadership and mindsets in the entire game of basketball. He also has the second most points in the entire game at 81. Peter, would you like to add anything on that?
Sure. I mean, I think he's the closest you're going to get to a replica of the number 1 guy, who I think it is. We won't name names, but y'all know who it is. But he's as close as you're going to get as a replica. The cons on him is that he shoots a lot. Maybe he's a bit of a chunker. He throws up some shots maybe when he should probably pass it. Maybe he should trust his teammates, and that's a knock on him early in his career. But like you said, he did grow, and his mentality matured, and I think he ended up having a really good legacy as a basketball player. I think sometimes he gets knocked because, like the first player we just mentioned, Shaq Daddy, those first 3 championships are probably more credited to Shaq than they are to Kobe. So, that's the debate. I think Kobe belongs in the top 10. Can he go to be number 1? That's why we're having this talk.
I agree. And I'm going to say some cons that I've read online. So these are not my viewpoints. These are just some statistics and some points of views that are presented by a bunch of internet armchair users. So according to Marcus Murphy online, he claims that Kobe Bryant is the most overrated player of all time, making claims that he has never shot above 47% from the field in a season. he had his peak season in 2006, which was arguably worse than Curry's undeserved MVP season of 2015, where Kobe had 27 points a game and Curry had almost 28 points a game. In the NBA Finals, Kobe has a 41.2 field goal percentage, while the rest of his team has a 46% field goal percentage. So there's also a lot of things that you can attribute to that, but like if you're looking at stats right off the bat, they're not looking too hot.
There's a lot to chew here. I think I'd like to hear Keaton's objective view on this. I mean, we've laid out – he's a very polarizing player.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
What's your thoughts, Special K?
This is incredibly tough, especially after the cons that you just listed.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really brings him down a few pegs, in my mind at least. I was going to ask just a question here because there's a lot to filter out, and I think this would be something I could compare him to our previous candidate, Shaquille. Where did Kobe go to college?
He didn't go to college. He came straight out of high school, Lower Marion in Philadelphia.
Did he have any prospects or acceptance letters?
I would imagine
colleges.
I would imagine he did. Probably wanted to go to North Carolina, like he wanted to probably follow his idol. But I think he announced pretty early on that he was going to go straight to the NBA.
Okay. Well, how is his physical demeanor? Was he a physically dominating or?
He was kind of a skinny guy. Skinny guy, but very slick. A slasher type where he could really get through different holes that maybe other people couldn't. He was quick. He was decently athletic, compared to his rivals. But I think his skill set is what really sets him apart because he has such a great work ethic. That he
I agree. I don't think he was ever probably the most
physically gifted player
physically gifted on his team at any point, but what he was able to do with the ball and able to get it, into the hoop, which is the game of basketball, overlooked all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's quite incredible. As you guys both know, myself, I'm an incredibly average character when it comes to athletics and athleticism, but I'm very, very team oriented, and I'm very goal oriented,
mm-hmm.
and I can kind of gel with this idea of always putting yourself at a disadvantage in terms of athleticism by whatever he was doing, maybe not working out or purposely eating a bad diet to set himself a couple pegs lower in the athletic scale,
mm-hmm.
but at the same time being a amazing teammate and leader and just a role model out in the field, out in the court.
Mm-hmm.
I can gel with that. And for me, that just elevates him so much higher from my point of view. But who am I? Just some kid who went to LSU Eunice,
Yes.
On to the next one.
Yes. You could be the next one on this list, though. Who knows? You still got a chance. You're still young. All right. So number 8, we're looking at Mr. Timothy Duncan, the 6'11" power forward / center from Wake Forest. He was the first overall pick in 1997 and played for 19 seasons with the Spurs. He is a 5-time NBA champion. But what makes this different is that it was really spaced out. He won in 99, 03, 05, 07, and 14. So, yeah. He's a 3-time Finals MVP. He is a 15-time All-Star. He is a 15-time All-Defensive Team. And he has the most total All-Defensive Teams by a margin of 3, which is a good bit. He is the Rookie Player of the Year from 97 to 98, a 2-time MVP in 2002 and 2003, and had a career average of 19 points a game, 10 rebounds a game, and 3 assists per game. So he is known as probably being the most consistent player ever in the history of the NBA.
Known as Mr. Fundamental, the big fundamental.
Absolutely.
He was just
He was
so consistent.
he was probably the least flashy all-time great there is. So that kind of gets people to look over him a bit, but when you look at his statistics, he's always been there.
Yeah, he's put up the numbers. He's obviously put up the championships and all the different accolades a player can get. Just like you said, the flashiness. He's not the one to be dunking on people, even though his name is Tim Duncan.
That is fair.
But he won because he knew how to play the game. Just like the previous player we talked about, Kobe. He won because he worked hard and he learned the skill set to maneuver on the court and to be a good team player. So, I think he's kind of I think he definitely should be in the top 10. He's got the accolades. He's got the skill set. I may be biased too because I don't think he's as flashy, and that's just, that's no fault of his own, but, that's just it.
Right. It definitely hurts the all-time great because you think of an all-time great, you think of somebody who's all over the place doing all this incredible stuff. And while, by the books, none of the stuff he did was, all-star weekend worthy.
Right. It wasn't iconic, I guess you would say.
But, that's how the game of basketball was played, way, way, way back in the day. So it was just, if Tim Duncan played in, the 70s.
Timeless, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It just works. So we're going to go over some pros here. He is a 2-time MVP, and he's one of only 2 players in his era to have ever done that, the other being LeBron James. So that's really impressive in and of itself. Here's an incredible stat. He's never missed the playoffs. In his 19 years in the NBA, not a single missed playoff.
Pretty big one.
He is 5-1 in the finals, which is impressive considering the only team he lost to was arguably the best Miami Heat team of all time. And then he came back and beat them. So he has incredible consistency for his longevity. I mean, you got any others there, Pete?
I think you named it all. I mean, let's hear the cons. What are people saying bad about him?
So what some people have said bad about him is that he's always been on a team with great players. He's never been on a team that has been struggling to give him help. Okay. Just to name a few, Tony Parker, Kawhi Leonard, Manu Ginobili, David Robinson, and of course he's been coached by Greg Popovich, who's one of the all-time greats in coaching.
So he's a system player is what people are saying, which I could see.
Exactly.
I could see it. But I think at the peak of his powers, he's right up there with the all-time greats in terms of skill set and the way he played.
I can agree. Another thing people said is that he was never a scoring leader and rarely ever made it to the top 10 in scoring in a season in the entire league. Well, I understand it goes with his position and the situation he was in, but if you look at other power forwards, such as Karl Malone, who is the second all-time leading scorer in NBA history, it kind of makes you think, could Timmy have scored a little bit more?
Possibly, but, was it at the benefit of his team? Now, Special K, I'd like to bring you in on this. What are your thoughts? Is he too boring? Is he in the right place? I think he's honestly probably in the right place in the top 10.
I don't think he could have done a little bit more here.
I don't think he's the GOAT.
Well, personally, and you guys might be a little upset to hear this, but what comes to my mind when you guys are saying consistency, fundamentals, I'm thinking, repetition, doing the same thing over and over, whatever it takes to win. And honestly, I couldn't imagine someone wanting to flip on the telly, flip on the boob tube, go to ESPN, channel whatever, watching the NBA and watching the same Timothy Duncan over and over do the same thing for however long he played.
20 years.
I mean, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result? What are people like who watch Timothy Duncan? Watching him do the same thing over and over? I mean, honestly.
Well, I think people can respond, though, with success. I mean, he does have 5 championships and 2 MVPs.
But just, I don't know, for me, a casual, a fair weather observer of the NBA, I don't think I would want to watch something, so unchanging and so consistent for that extent of time. It almost destroys the uniqueness and ever evolving nature of the game
The
to see
entertainment.
something. Yeah, and you can draw parallels to other sports that are purely spectator driven, like MMA
Mm-hmm.
or boxing. If you have a boxer who's really good, but all he does is turtle down and fight in a very boring manner, he can be the best at the game, but he's not going to win. He's not going to necessarily win the hearts of
I lost you
all
there.
the fans. Unfortunately, with all his accolades and consistency, can't rank him very high.
I respect that. I think enough said on that. I mean, I think that's perfectly said. I mean,
I think that can go into it. As I was talking to you, Pete, about when Kobe retired his last season. They had festivities every single stadium he went to. He was given presents, and as he should. He was an all-time great. Well, Tim Duncan had kind of a silent retirement where after his season, he just said, "Okay, guys, peace out."
Mm-hmm.
And didn't make a big scene out of it. It just kind of shows the different play style, And they're both all-time greats, easy top 10 and easy in the GOAT conversation for their own right. So I'm not saying Kobe didn't deserve it.
I think Tim Duncan's the greatest power forward of all time. I think that's safe to say.
I think there's an argument for Malone though. I think I will take, if you flip a coin, I'm okay with either of them. But I wouldn't take Malone out that conversation though.
Okay. I hear you. I think just because the accolades alone. I think Karl Malone's
the accolades are great, but I'm not gonna. The cons I did present though. I think Duncan is kind of a guy where the cons, they just look at his consistency and they're like, man, that guy's good. But you got to look at a lot of other things.
They're hating him because he's so good and so solid.
Yeah. I guess
you're hating for him because he has flaws in his game. Which I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair. So I'm okay with either of them being called the best in their position. So no argument necessarily there. All right, Pete, you ready for number 7?
Sure. Hit me with it, please.
Larry Legend, 6'9", small forward from Indiana State University, who played 13 seasons with the Celtics, and that is tied for the shortest career on the top 10 list.
Ooh.
But even though he had such a short career, he was a 3-time NBA champion in 81, 84, and 86, 2-time Finals MVP, 12-time All-Star, 9-time First-Team Rookie of the Year, 1980, but a 3-time league MVP. Who had a career stat line of 24 points per game, 10 rebounds a game, and 6.3 assists a game. So some pros. 3 MVPs. That's pretty darn good if you ask me. A lot of people said he hasn't had the opportunity to be as great as he was because his prime was cut pretty short. He only had about 9 healthy seasons. So even though he didn't get to accomplish too much, he should have accomplished more. And he's arguably the best passer in his position. That dude could drop some nice passes across.
I think that's an underrated part of his game. I've seen some highlights, and they're pretty ridiculous.
Oh man, he was magic out there. He also had the greatest single season turnaround by just one player. Whenever he was added to the Celtics, they improved by 32 games. That's pretty darn impressive.
I agree. What are the cons on him?
So some cons about Mr. Bird is that this surprised me. This may surprise you, Pete. He is not top 25 in points, assists, rebounds, blocks, or steals.
Really?
Not top 25 in any of those categories.
That's interesting.
And I brought up the only 9 healthy seasons. That's kind of a con. Can an all-time great have that much of his career up in the air like that? And I don't know if this is considered a con to you, but he's probably the least athletic out of all the top 10 presented. Would you consider that a con?
I mean, it's kind of the same deal with Tim Duncan. He took what he had and just made the best out of it. The thing is, though, with Larry Legend is hell, he's got a nickname, Larry Legend. So the pop culture, that impact, that flair and that flash, people love them for that being able to make fancy passes, make a 3 over 3 different people. People love that, and that's part of his appeal, and that's why he's probably ahead of Tim Duncan, even though Tim Duncan might have more consistent numbers and better numbers than him. Is that when he came into the NBA, that the league was struggling. Him and along with another player that's on this list that's further down.
We'll get to.
Yeah, we'll get to him. They basically brought the NBA to the mainstream, and bringing it to the mainstream, that marketability and that pop culture icon status. I think that puts a little shine on him compared to Tim Duncan or any other player that might not be as flashy as he is. But I mean, Larry Legend could play. He knew how to play, and like I said, he made the most of about everything that he had. Now, I can see the knock that maybe he didn't last as long as maybe the other all-time greats, but I mean, 13 seasons is enough. 13 seasons is enough. And
I mean, he had some great. There's some incredible accolades here. Like one stat I'm reading right here is that he's one of only 2 players to win either first or second in MVP voting for 6 straight years.
That's impressive.
And he's the first player in history to have a 50% field goal percentage, a 40% three-point percentage, and a 90% free throw percentage. And he did it for 2 seasons.
It's incredibly efficient.
Exactly.
Special K. I mean, what do you think? I know you probably know who Larry Legend. Even as a casual fan, you probably know who Larry Legend is.
Exactly.
I do. I have heard his name mentioned in circles. I've actually had a friend whose dad was like the biggest Larry fan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was hard to go through life as a young lad growing up around LSU Eunice and not hearing the name Larry. Larry, whether it was a Larry that you knew or the actual Larry Legend himself. So, of course, something I think very strongly. I think about when I think about Larry and his legacy, I think about the intangibles, the intangible value that he had as a player, things that you could not write down in a stat book. Like Alex mentioned, there's numerous categories, but he didn't even make it. He didn't crack into the top 25. And people point out, they say, hey, what's the deal with this? Why is he so legendary? Well, there are things you can't record, you can't write down, and you can't describe without getting a little esoteric. That can make something amazing. And they do it all the time with they talk about it when you're evaluating a company, and you think, how much cash they have in their balance sheets, what are their stats, what's their cash flow, what's their expenses, But when it comes to something like brand recognition, you can even put a dollar amount on that. Do you have any idea how important that is? Larry Legend had brand recognition.
Very well.
And that's not something that you can write down in a stat book.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree with you. I think that swagger, or that, he was one of the best trash talkers of all time. That's not in a stat book, but just that swagger he played with, people were drawn to that. And he actually backed it up too.
He's probably the most hard-nosed player, I think, out there. Like, that guy was not afraid of a fight. And he wasn't a guy to start the fight, but if you wronged him out there, no matter how big you were, he was going to throw a punch.
Yeah. I think he's properly placed. So far, I think just about everyone's been properly placed in terms of this top 10 list. He's a legend. He rescued the NBA when it was in dark times. And, I think, could he be a GOAT? In some circles, he definitely has an argument just because of his impact.
And people have made arguments for him. Not a lot of people. Right. But people.
Just because of that impact and that, that brand recognition, as Mr. Special K has brought up. It's that brand recognition. It's how people see you, even though you might not be as good. If you speak well, you look good, they probably don't care exactly how much you're saying. So it's that analogy. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
All right. I'm excited for the next one on the list. So I'm going to go into it.
You might have some brand recognition.
This right here is probably my favorite player to just study and talk about, and it is Mr. Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain coming in at number 6. He is a 7'1" center from Kansas, a 7-time scoring champion, 10 All-NBA team, 4-time MVP, Rookie of the Year, 2-time All-Defensive, 2-time NBA champ, 7 all-time scoring, and 11-time rebounding. This dude has so many accolades. It's not even funny how many accolades.
Accolades. We'll just call him accolades. I mean,
I'll call them accolades if I want. I mean, I can go on forever. So he's the only player to lead the league in points, rebounds, and assists in the same season as a center, which is unheard of. He has a career line of 30 points per game, 22 rebounds per game, 4 assists per game. I would argue he's the most dominant player of all time. I mean, 11 rebounding titles. He is the all-time rebound leader. He even held a 50-point-per-game season at one point, as well as the record of 100 points in a game. Not only that, I looked it up. He has 72 NBA records.
Damn.
It's stuff such as most points scored in a half, most consecutive 50-point games, fewest games to reach 20,000 points, most points by a rookie in a game. It's absurd. It's just he had a record of 22 rebounds per game. That's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, I would imagine the cons is that his competition wasn't as deep or as stacked as it would.
Exactly. He took the word out of my mouth. Some people think he played against a bunch of plumbers. At the time, there was only 3 total 7-footers in the entire league.
But is that his fault, though?
That's hard to say.
He played to his competition. And that's also kind of his con, is that he played to his competition.
Exactly.
Is that he didn't live up to all of his talent, that even more.
Correct. He was considered a ball hog by some. Just kind of wanted those stats, wanted those points per games. Some people think that for being so big in a league so small, only 2-time all-defensive, maybe he could have gotten more.
Right.
And also, he only has 2 rings. He scored 50 points per game in a season.
You should be winning a game. Damn straight.
He only had 2 total rings, which is impressive, but whenever you're the one of the only 7-foot-tall guys.
So, I mean, now that you read all these stats to me, like, I didn't even know. I know he's obviously the 100-point game is very iconic. I think the casual fan knows about that, and also about his escapades in his personal life with several different women. But the thing is, like, I mean, he has the case to be the GOAT. He's got the talent. He had the numbers. I think that really knock on him is just kind of that bad image, I guess. People thought he had more. He could produce even more with what his talent is, and that ring argument where he only has 2 rings.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's just like when you're playing against people who, I mean, a lot of people don't take that time in the NBA seriously. They just kind of look at it as kind of like the before times. We don't really look at that.
Right, because like you said, the competition wasn't very good. But man, just now hearing all that, I think he might have an argument to be up there, and I think it's just that part where he just didn't produce everything that maybe everyone wanted.
I agree.
So I'm interested to hear Mr. Keaton, Special K. Come on in.
Well, Pistol Pete, I've got I think a great analogy for you.
Please.
Because from the sound of it, this Wilt the Stilt bloke, he sounds like a classic case of what I call the achievement hunter.
Oh, hello.
So
where are we going here?
So you guys play video games, right? Or computer games, as we used to call them.
I'm an avid player of NBA EA 99. I play as Allen Iverson. So yeah.
Okay. You yourself, Peter, have you played any Pong or Space Invader?
Yeah, he's more of like a Spy Fox, Freddy Fish type.
Yeah.
Okay.
Crash Bandicoot as well.
Okay. And are you familiar with these in-game sort of accolades that they're not related to the main quest or the main purpose or the main storyline of the game, but you can kind of go out of your way to show how proficient you are at playing a game without actually playing the game for the point that it was,
the accomplishment.
It's
I'm
the
picking up what you're putting
accomplishment
down. Yep.
of the story or the satisfaction of beating the game.
I hear you.
It's like you're doing everything to play the game well, but the game itself, you've mastered the fundamentals. You can score high. You can score high points, but you don't bother playing till the end. And this guy just seemed like he was just after achievements. He was breaking records left and right. He could do everything, but win as many titles as these other guys. He's 2 rings. Now that's not that's not anything you want to turn your nose up at.
Right.
2 rings is 2 rings. Fair play to the geezer, but to have all those accomplishments and to be playing against a bunch of plumbers, a bunch of guys who went to trade school, a bunch of guys who went to trade school and they work on your water faucet. Listen, if Shaquille or Steve Nash or any of these other guys were playing against a bunch of guys who had actual day jobs, plumbers, real plumbers, they would have been trouncing them just the same and winning more than 2 titles.
Very good point.
So it sounds like this guy, he had, the game served to him on a silver platter, and he picked around everything but the title championship, which is kind of the point of, in the first place. And I kind of agree. I have to agree with y'all. It doesn't bode well for his image. So I'm going to have to say, this guy's going straight to the bottom of my list right now.
Wow.
He's sitting below Timothy Duncan at the moment.
Sheesh.
Oh my goodness.
Jeez.
Well, my word, you definitely put your
mark
opinion out there, and since your opinion's there, I'm just gonna say a couple more incredible, impressive facts, just because they're just kind of there. So he has the most rebounds in a half at 26, which is absurd. And this one is crazy to me. He has the most total rebounds in a season as the record, which is 2,149. And he also holds the next 6 spots on that list because he's that crazy. He has the most rebounds in a 7-game playoff series at 220, which is incredible too. And this one I find the funniest. He's the only player in NBA history to lead the league in points and rebounds in the same season. And he did that 6 times.
And I know he changed the game too, just like they changed rules just because of him.
Multiple times because he found a way around it.
It's the more and more you tell, it's like, how does this dude? So there's a guy lower on this list that has more rings and not as much talent or not as dominating. How does Wilt Chamberlain not have as many rings, if not more?
Exactly. It's a head scratcher, ain't it?
Yeah, it is. Now that you tell me everything, all his accolades, it's just, man, Wilt, come on now.
Also a Harlem Globetrotter legend. Yeah. If we take that in consideration.
Hey, that's a bit of that brand recognition, but I think that's also kind of hurt him because people are already thinking maybe he doesn't take the game seriously or something like that.
That's fair. All right, number 5. We're halfway through the list, and we got
one. Or do you want a 2-parter, or do you want to just go all the way?
Do a 2-part. You want to do a long haul?
I'm kind of getting a little hungry.
You can do a 2-parter then. All right, we'll end with this guy. Sound good?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, number 5. It is Michigan State legend Magic Johnson. He is a 5-time NBA champ, 2-time All-Star MVP, 3-time MVP, All-Rookie Team, 12-time All-Star. He is also a 4-time assist leader in the league. It has an all-time assist per game at 11.2. That's the highest in the league. So, pretty dang impressive if you ask me.
What's his pros and cons? What are people saying about him?
So, pros, arguably the best passer in the game, as well as the best point guard in the game. I mean, he had 2 stealing titles as well. So pretty impressive for a guy like him, if you ask me. I know no one really is, but the cons kind of go against him with a little bit of Tim Duncan flair. I mean, that dude had a lot of help. I mean, he was part of some of the best teams of all time.
Okay.
He had a teammate who's also on this list that's ranked higher than him for a good bit of his career.
That's a bold argument. I don't think you're praising him. I don't think the pros are praising him as much as it should be.
I think he's the greatest passer of all time.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people will.
I think that is true, but it's the same thing with Larry Legend. So the player that I was mentioning earlier about Larry Legend, him, Magic Johnson, and Larry Legend grew the game when it was in the cellar basically. When the NBA really needed some markability, they grew it, and they grew it tenfold. So I think that should be definitely impact his position. I think that's possibly why he's number 4. The icon status, that pop culture status. He played for the Los Angeles Lakers, which is an iconic team. People love the Lakers. And he won. He produced. He was a great passer. He was flashy. I mean, you could also make the argument that he made the players around him better. Maybe those players that you call them good, maybe they weren't be as good if it weren't for Magic Johnson giving them passes. So,
and what's a highly forgotten fact about the man is that he could play any position if needed.
Yes.
He had a big build, and he was a point guard. He was a 6'9" point guard.
Mm-hmm.
That's unheard of.
Right.
And not only was he a 6'9" point guard, he was the best point guard, arguably.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's incredible. He has the all-time record for highest career assists per game as 11.2 with a 6'9" build.
Mm-hmm.
Most all-time assists in the playoffs. And he has the all-time record for triple-doubles in the playoff at 30. I mean, this guy just he could do it. He played the center position in the playoffs at one point.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I agree with you. The versatility is amazing. I think, now that I'm looking at it and now hearing all these accolades for these different players, man, Larry Legend and Magic do benefit because they are icons. And I guess that is it's a big part of it. They did grow the game, but if we're talking pure basketball, they didn't maybe produce as much as Will Chamberlain or Tim Duncan.
But who did? Who did produce as far?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But maybe maybe we're looking with rosy goggles. What do you think, Special K?
Well, Pistol Pete, I've got 3 words for you.
Uh-oh.
Swiss Army pocket knife. Pocket knife being one word.
Hyphenated.
This guy, yes, it's a hyphenated. It's one word. So I didn't violate the 3-word.
No, you didn't. I was checking. I was about to call you out.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. This guy, the fact that he could play all these positions, I don't think that is something that should be taken lightly. And the argument against this silly argument that you can be in a team full of great players, and that somehow takes away from your
accomplishments,
your accomplishments or your argument for being the GOAT. I mean, like it's a team sport. There is no I in team. TEAM. There's no I in that.
Keep going.
Exactly. I don't even think teams, teamer, teaming has an I in it. I mean, like most of the versions of team don't have an I in it. And the fact that people constantly bring this up, I mean, I think it's silly. Mm-hmm. It's like if it's a team sport, if anything, having good people on your team should highlight, should make should compliment you as a player, and should make you perform even better. I know that that's counterintuitive to what I was saying before, and that you shouldn't have good people on your team taking away from your accomplishments. But if anything, you make others look better and they make you look better should not be an argument against someone vying for the GOAT position. So the fact that this guy was so versatile and he was so winning, it puts him in a good position in my book. Not the top position. I know we have more to come, and I'm still thinking about this this Larry bloke, and his brand name and his series of brand deals with all sorts of things.
Well, a lot of people.
Larry lingerie, Larry, Larry leggings, Larry, all sorts of, alliterations of the Larry brand. Very successful.
Can I make a point real quick? Like I agree with you to an extent, but I think at the same time we can't underplay how he probably had the best supporting cast in NBA history. I just counted, with the time with the Lakers and playing with him, he had 15 different players who had an average of over 10 points per game while playing with them. And that included some James Worthy, Jamal Wilkes, Brian Scott, Sam Perkins, Bob McAdoo. These are AC Green.
Not to mention the number 2 player on this list.
Oh, exactly. And granted, he probably helped him. Being probably the best passer of all time definitely helped him. But he had a lot of tools in his shed that got the job done.
I see your point there, Alex, and I respectfully disagree. Just because, even this whole argument about who's the GOAT of the sport, when the metrics that you use to decide the GOAT are forever and always going to be subjective and muddied by their teammates and the plumbers, the trade schoolers that they played against, and all that. All that stuff.
The trains they took to their games.
Exactly. Weather conditions, that sort of stuff. It's like you can't possibly you can't possibly come to a conclusion of who is the best in a team sport. But the argument that you have good people on your team somehow detracting from your legitimacy, there is somehow subtracting from your shot at claiming the title of the GOAT to whatever that means, is silly, and I respectfully disagree with your assertions.
Interesting. You got anything else you want to add, Peter, on the Mr. Magic Irvin Johnson?
I hear special case point of view, and I think it's valid. I think it's sound. I still think that we're maybe holding some rosy goggles over Larry Legend and Magic Johnson.
I agree.
Just because of that brand recognition. Hell, his name is Magic, so his real name is Irving, but his nickname is Magic, and people know him as Magic, and they know Larry Legend as Larry Legend. So I think we're putting little rosy goggles on them, but they do have the accolades. It's not that they didn't back it up, but maybe I don't know. Maybe we're holding them too highly.
Interesting.
Could be. Yeah, we've still got 4 more to go.
To be continued, for sure.
And it's going to get interesting.
We've still got a full half list left to go, and
it's
they're only going to get
right now.
going to get harder from here.
It's Final Four.
Oh, literally.
Oh, hello.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
So let's just see where we're at right now with all the players we looked at. Who would you guys say, out of the list presented already, is the GOAT?
That list?
From the list that we went over today.
Pete, you go first.
Man. I'm going to have to say Wilt Chamberlain. I know he didn't produce as much as everyone wanted, but he still freaking produced. I guess that's just one of those things where he just had all the talent in his pinky. He didn't use the rest of his body, sort of deal. But man, the accolades that he had, you can't argue with that. He changed the game in so many ways, and he is iconic in his own way. Maybe not as much as Larry Legend and Magic, but I think he is the GOAT out of that 6 players that we just listed. And honestly, that's an argument with the other 4.
Exactly. I think for me, it's probably either between Mr. Timmy or Wilt. I agree everything what you said about Wilt. It almost sounds like he didn't exist with his stats. But I think just some of the accolades that Tim had in the era when he played it, I'm going to kind of go in a little bit with the Plummer argument here. Tim Duncan winning 2 MVPs in an era when no one did that with crazy defense. I mean, he has the most all-defensive team like in an era where like that was fairly hard to get and some good defense going on.
Two-way player. I get you.
So I even though he didn't put this, I kind of said some things about his scoring. I kind of did, but he produced when he needed to, I think. So for me, I think it's a toss-up between Wilt and Timmy, but I think that's a hard one, Pete. I think, again, as I said, I'll flip a coin, and either one I'll accept, but I'm probably leaning towards Wilt right now because video game numbers, man. 50 points per game in a season?
50 of them.
That's insane.
Keith, what do you think? Yeah, I know Wilt. You're not a fan of Wilt.
Yeah, Lo Siento, Los Muchachos, but Wilt Chamberlain for me, I just can't get over the fact that he came up short in the only real metric you use to decide who is the best team in any given season. So I'm going to go with my boy, Leraldo Legend.
Leraldo.
Or Larry is the English American Anglo-Saxon.
Father's name.
Yeah, as my Anglo-Saxon brethren use. Refer. Yeah, it's yeah.
You're gonna stick.
I'm gonna have to go with Larry. I'm gonna have to go with Larry because, again, it's like, what do people remember? 5 years from now, is it someone who put up a bunch of crazy numbers but ultimately didn't do anything for the team itself? I mean, yeah, 2 rings is 2 rings.
Yeah,
2 rings is 2 rings. But to make an impact in such a way that isn't even tangible, like you can't even describe using stats or numbers or figures or factors or rational numbers or square root of -1s or anything like that.
Right.
You just can't put value on that. You can't put a dollar on that.
Priceless, huh?
It's priceless.
I think all 3 of our arguments are valid. I don't think anyone could make them. And you will have people that agree and people who will disagree. I think there's been a fun discussion so far. I can't wait till we get to the top 4.
I will say, though, when we're looking at some of the future players, the cons become a little bit harder to find. I will say, I think some of these other players, 10 is a big difference between the greatest and the 10th greatest. So
stay tuned, fans out there. I know we're going to have the reunion, a sequel to the reunion.
Part 2.
Yeah. Hello. Well, Keith, this was fun. We'll reconvene for part 2 someday soon. Same thing. Okay. Same to you. I know you've been calling him Alex. That was his old name before he was born.
Yeah, I don't go by that no mo.
It's Jimothy or Jim Redvine.
Yeah, Jimothy.
I honestly, I totally blanked on
it's
your
all
nickname.
Good. It happens. You knew him before he was born, so.
That's right. It's okay. I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to embarrass you, but since Peter said something, I feel okay to embarrass you now, and I'm really offended. So.
It's all good. It's all good. We'll have some more. This was fun. We'll have some more fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Part 2.
And I think we can, by the end of it, when we take everything in consideration, we will have a good argument for the GOAT. Because I learned some stuff today. I'm hoping you guys did too.
I did.
I learned a lot.
So.
I learned a lot, and no, all the credit to you both of you because. As it's probably very apparent, I don't know a whole lot about this game. I don't know a lot about the history, the legacy, and I'm just here to kind of provide a different perspective. So,
well, you're doing
I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys including me in this because I'm learning so much. And just to throw my 2 cents in with the rest of y'all, the rest of y'all. Historians of the sport, it means a lot.
Ooh.
You've been great so far, Special K.
You have been great. You've been, and you're not afraid to go into some hot takes.
Mm-hmm.
You were calling out some guys there.
Me like
You know?
you. Mm-hmm.
And like these are all-time greats we're talking about. Names you've never heard of before, but you're still willing to call them out.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't be much of a podcast if I was just kind of going with the mob mentality, as they say.
I'm applauding you in that sense.
Yeah, me like you. Keep it coming.
I hear that.
I'm ready for more. Give me a second serving.
Yeah.
Call the waiter back over here.
Give my regards to the chef.
I'm not ready for my check yet.
We'll have some dessert.
Can I see a dessert menu?
Maybe some late night drinks. I don't know. What's your cocktails like?
Mm-hmm.
Give me a Long Island iced tea. It's about to get funky up in here.
I think we'll have another happy hour.
Yeah. Next round's on me.
You guys are killing it. Absolutely killing it.
I'm not done yet.
Uh-oh.
We'll hold that thought till.
I'll present my list of other restaurant-related.
You guys don't take credit?
What's the soup of the day?
I'll have some fries with that.
Can I have a no smoking area, please?
What's that? My card didn't come. What's that? My card didn't work.
Run it again.
I feel terrible, but I have an extra person coming. Can we add a chair, please?
Okay.
Can we get a seat next to the window?
Smoking or non-smoking section.
I'm sorry. Could I see a gluten-free menu?
I'm sorry. Can I have a refill of Diet Coke? I hate to bother you.
Tune in next time at the 6-Man podcast. We're not the starters.